Well, today Greece celebrates its liberation from the Turks in 1821. Well, that's when the war started. It wasn't liberated for about another 9 years, about eight, 9 years, and then the boundaries were drawn up for liberated Greece. Not the whole of Greece was liberated. It wasn't until about 1912 when the first Balkan War took place and Thessalonica was liberated. It took another 7 years, really. Well, another 5 years. Another 5 years later, after 1912, after the First World War, during the First World War, the Turks had sided with the Germans, and in 1917 they surrendered, and that marked the end of the Ottoman Empire, or the beginning of the end. And if you imagine, it's just ancient history, well, old history is not so much ancient, and think again, because after the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, the Middle East was ruled by Britain and France, and they withdrew. They drew up the new boundaries and created new countries, and particularly Palestine came under the British mandate. And then the Balfour Declaration, where the British wanted to create a homeland. They wanted to create a two-state solution after the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, and then that's when all the problems began that we see in the Middle East, continuing to today. And so we're still witnessing the consequences of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in the world. And as I'm speaking now, the Houthis in Yemen are being bombed, and there's talk of war against Iran. These are former members of the Ottoman Empire. And from 1917, the British did try, as mentioned before, to bring a two-state solution. One individual who became the leader of the Palestinians, Amin al-Husseini, who was called the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, he opposed any ideal of the Jews having their own homeland again, which would have been almost 2,000 years before the Jews lost the temple 70 CE to the Romans, and it had been ruled by various powers from that time onwards: the Romans, Byzantines, the Ottomans, and then the British. And now what happened with Amin al-Husseini, he was absolutely determined that the Jews, as I've already mentioned, were not going to that they were not going to have an independent homeland. And then he sided with the Germans in World War II, and from his Nazi-financed radio broadcasting station called for the end of the Jews, the death of the Jews, the Holocaust. He knew the Holocaust was taking place, and helped in the propaganda, the anti-Semitic propaganda from Germany. It's almost hidden history, because it doesn't fit in with a lot of the modern philosophies. But he lost, just as the Ottomans in the First World War. Just as the Germans, just as the Ottomans had lost their empire in the First World War. So the decision to side with the Nazis in World War II brought an end to the British attempts to create a two-state solution. Well, in 1939 they tried, and northwest of Israel would have become the Jewish state, and the rest of Israel would have become a Palestinian state, but that was rejected. Well, anyway, after World War II, the British had really had enough of their control of Israel. So what they did, the United Nations had a vote in 1947 to bring about a two-state solution. Instead, war. The Arabs declared war on Israel in 1948. Yes, and so the world is now facing the consequences of two world wars. This situation in the Middle East could cause major problems throughout the world. Our large religious communities throughout the Western world that are percentage of them are considered to be extremists, so many Western governments now are becoming extremely concerned for the ongoing consequences of the Middle East conflict. It is shocking to have seen the destruction that's been brought on Gaza. Absolutely shocking. And like I said, I've already said as I'm talking, said to be another carrier group headed towards the Gulf. And ultimatums are being handed to the Iranian regime, the mullahs. And again, this is the ongoing collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The ongoing collapse of it, the defeat. And so, more innocent people have died, got caught up in the nationalism, extremism of others. And so what the world will be facing imminently, we'll have to wait and see. But like I said, the two horrific events of World War I and World War II, the consequences are still ongoing. Ukraine itself was part of the Soviet Union. And they suffered horrific consequences of World War II, being ruled by the Nazis, under the Nazis, and then the Soviets came and liberated Ukraine from the Nazis. And again, the ongoing consequences, the end of the Cold War, which was a consequence of World War II, all still going on. And so here they are, the people are celebrating their liberation from one despotic empire, only for the world to still live with the consequences of the beginning of the 21st century on now into the so-called new millennium. And so it is sad what's happening in the world, that's for sure.